What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel.
Alright, so technically speaking, I'm recording this one second, right? Like I recorded Superman Peace on Earth first because I never read any of these, the world's greatest superheroes line of stories. I just Googled like Alex Ross art and I was like, where is that story? Like what story is that from? And then I started poking around and I found world's greatest superheroes. And so these are gonna be some stories I'm just gonna pepper in wherever I have a place to put them in. I mean, there's not gonna be like a day dedicated to them. It's just, I'll upload them 1 week and then you may not see another one for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm just gonna kind of pepper them in where I have the ability to do that because I have a few spots that are open here and there over the course of my schedule where I can just kind of throw them in there. But the idea is that to me, and again, I've said this in the Superman video, and I'm going to say it again because I think it bears repeating, Alex Ross art is some of the best art there ever was in comic books, and there's no arguing that point. I mean, it's insane how good this is because of the emotion it invokes, right? Like, I look at Alex Ross's art of superheroes. Like, I look at the superheroes that he draws, the Avengers, the Justice Society of America, especially the Justice Society of America. I look at the pictures that he draws, and it makes me nostalgic for an era of comics that I wasn't part of. Like, it kind of makes me look at the heroes and it's like, see, those are superheroes. Like, those are superheroes who don't have moral ambiguity. They know what the right thing is and they do what the right thing, they do what the right thing is every single time. There's no gray area there. There's right and there's wrong, and that's it. And that's what I love about this because it just kind of captures that era of comic books. So I always imagine that if DC were going to launch, like Earth 2, if they were going to relaunch Earth 2, I'd want to see Alex Ross just draw the whole thing. The problem is it would take forever to do because it takes so long to crank these out. But the cool thing about Batman War on Crime is much like Superman Peace on Earth, much like we'll see with that, it strips away all the gadgets and stuff, right? Because right now, if you go out and you pick up a Batman comic from DC Rebirth and you start going through the stories, Batman has gadgets for everything. I mean, he's got gadgets, he's got stuff for everything. That's his utility belt, the infinite depths of the utility belt. If Batman needs it, it's in the utility belt. It's like he found a genie one day and said, "Genie, I wish for a utility belt that I could reach into and have whatever I need for any particular situation." Batman's wish. That's his utility belt. But it is kind of cool in the sense that, it creates some interesting stories, it creates some interesting situations, but for the most part, it kind of takes away from the character, right? Like, Batman doesn't struggle. Like, Batman always has a solution for everything. Superman comes racing in and he's possessed by Harley Quinn like he was in Hush. He's controlled by her and her plants, and he and Batman attack each other, they fight for a little while, and then Batman's got green kryptonite, so Superman's defeated. The cool thing about this story, War on Crime, is it takes all that away, and one of the things that I hope you notice over the course of this video is you are not going to see the Batmobile once. You won't see it one time. It does not exist in here. The Batwing will not be seen. It'll be nothing but Batman, his little gadgets, some small-time gadgets here and there, and that's it. This story focuses almost entirely on the character. Now, the cool thing is that, Bruce Wayne kind of reflects on his position as Batman, right? I mean, he says, look, to much of Gotham City, I'm a ghost. I'm an urban myth. I'm a boogeyman. I'm a guy that just goes around in the night and I pummel criminals. And that's what Batman relies on. That's the core thing about this. Batman relies on fear. Batman relies on mystery, on intrigue. He relies on the notion that criminals view him as something almost, mythological, as something almost supernatural, that Batman's this ghost, this phantom that just haunts around the city of Gotham, and evildoers beware because Batman will whisk you away to places unheard of, except that it's called Blackgate Prison. Like, they will take you away to bad places. But it's so cool because it's what he feeds on. The fear of villains is what makes Batman powerful. And it's kind of a funny situation, right? I mean, if no one was afraid of Batman, then Batman wouldn't be as capable. He wouldn't be as powerful as he is. He wouldn't be as capable of a hero as he is because there's no fear there. There's no reason to be scared of him. If people aren't scared of him, people can focus on him. If people can focus on him, they can find ways to take him out. And if they can find ways to take him out, then Batman will cease to exist. But as long as they're terrified of who he is, they have no reason to try to find a way to bring him down. But the cool thing is that where he says, look, my role as Batman is to patrol around the streets at night and take people out who are committing crimes, he says, I also have another way in which I fight villainy. I fight villainy in the form of Bruce Wayne. And that's what's so beautiful about this, is because he says, not all crime takes the form of a mugger with a ski mask holding up a liquor store. Some crime takes the form of a refusal to acknowledge other people's humanity, a refusal to acknowledge those who struggle and those who basically lose things in the pursuit of trying to find some measure of happiness in the life that they live. But even Bruce Wayne sits down and he says, I can't help but wonder what life would have been like. What would it have been like if my parents hadn't been killed? What would it have been like if I had just grown up as an extremely rich guy? What would my life life have been like? Is the death of my parents the one thing, is it what allows me to bridge the gap between the wealthy life that I live and those who don't have that kind of luxury? Was the death of my parents the way in which that bridge was built so that I could look upon the city that I've lived in my entire life and I can say, all those people over there are being ignored, but they're struggling and someone needs to help them? Is that what happened? And that's what's so cool about this, is because Bruce Wayne sits down, right? And there's a guy that basically kind of rolls into the scene. This guy is named Randall. And Randall is a guy that basically plans on tearing down a section of Gotham City for the purpose of just building up this great big huge monstrosity of what he considers to be a thriving area. Where he basically says, look, in this Bayside industrial complex is basically failing. Like, I mean, there's nothing there. There's nothing worth having. There's nothing worth worrying about there. I mean, sure, people are struggling, but they're poor. Who cares? And so he says, let's basically just kind of run them out and let's build up this huge, I guess, condo complex and then call it a day. And it's such a cool thing because Batman says, if these people are being ignored, then why? And he says, if there's so much crime there, if there's so much going on, then he says that can't be allowed to happen. I mean, there's still good people there. And that's the coolest thing about this, right? That's the coolest thing about Alex Ross's about this whole story between Paul Dini and Alex Ross. We would look at this and we would say, oh my God, here's another political story. Not at all. This is the two of them sitting down and saying, people are good. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. Sometimes good people are thrust into impossible situations and have to make bad decisions. And yes, sometimes there are just bad people who do bad things. But what this shows us is, despite all the experiences that Bruce Wayne's had, the death of his parents, all his run-ins with the Joker, all the horrible things he's seen, he has not lost his faith in humanity. He has not lost his faith in who these people are. Now, in this instance, he basically runs into a guy that is knocking over a local convenience store. Now, of course, Batman chases him down, but after hearing a couple shots, of course, he goes inside, and what he sees are the store owners who have basically been killed. But the problem with this is that their son Marcus is still very much there. Now, this is something, God, this is beautiful. This is something that I really hope you guys dig. There is this point where Batman looks down at Marcus and says, I see something else, something unexpected, but familiar. Bruce Wayne sees himself in this kid. They're totally different circumstances. He's never seen this kid once in his life, but he can see himself in this kid. Why? Because this kid's parents have been murdered for a senseless reason. Bruce Wayne's been down the exact same road. His parents were murdered for a senseless reason, for the physical items they possessed, and a guy on hard times decided that he needed them more than they did. And so Bruce Wayne had to experience his parents dying. This kid, Marcus, is experiencing the exact same thing. And what this story is designed to do is take these two concepts and juxtapose them alongside one another. That this is the road that Marcus is on right now is the road that Bruce Wayne could have taken. And the whole goal behind this will be to keep Marcus from falling along this path, from falling down this negative, this circle of negativity, this path of complete and total destruction. Something else that's really cool here about what Batman says is he talks about the scars of loss. He talks about the pain of loss, what it means to lose people who mean something to you, what it means to lose people who were so close to you. And what he says is those scars never go away. Those scars stay there. Sometimes the scars are physical, an abusive parent, the scars are physical from neglect or what have you. Sometimes the scars are mental. It poisons your mind. It turns you inside out. It turns you into a self-destructive person. Sometimes the scars are just of the soul. Sometimes the scars are such a degree that you just never really recover. But for some individuals, these experiences that they have will send them into a tailspin. It'll destroy their lives. It'll send them down a spiral, and they'll know nothing but death, misery, and destruction until the day they die. Sometimes they'll die of natural causes. Other times, they'll die of artificial causes. They'll turn the gun on themselves, somebody will turn the gun on them, but whatever the case may be, what's left of their life will be mired in tragedy. And so what Bruce Wayne does is he dons the disguise of a homeless man. And that's one of the coolest things about this, is he dons the disguise of a homeless man and says, hey, look, this is how I can blend in without anybody knowing who I am. And that's one of the things that he does quite frequently. Matches Malone, for example, is a really good identity that he does, but just kind of blend in with the world, just walk around and see things through the eyes of a normal street person, because you have to keep in mind, Bruce Wayne is one of the most well-known people in the world. If you were to just start walking around the streets of Gotham and somebody recognized him, they'd probably try to rob him. Now, woe betide the poor soul who makes that decision, but they would probably try to rob him. And so because of that, walking around as a homeless man means that he'll stay hidden, he'll stay ignored. Nobody will look him in the eye, nobody will look up at him. And so while he's making his way around, he kind of stops by that store that's been shot up, and he realizes there's a gang that's effectively tagged it, and they're just kind of spending time there. So what he does is he comes back later on that night and discovers his suspicions are true when their intention was just to basically rob the place. Now, this is something else that I hope you guys notice here. Batman actually uses a smoke pellet. Like, he just kind of throws a smoke bomb in order to keep these guys distracted. And that's the nature of what I love so much about these Alex Ross Paul Dini stories, is it strips away all the super advanced stuff. Batman's not like, I run in with a hologram of myself and then I come in from behind and take them by surprise. It's nothing, wildly ridiculous like that. It's simple. It's so small and down to earth. It's just Batman's, his little hook and twine. It's Batman's smoke bombs. It's just simple, homemade, basic things. I mean, where this fits into the continuity, I don't know. And in fact, I don't even think these have a continuity in themselves. I think it's just kind of a series of individual stories that ultimately culminate in the formation of the Justice League. But the idea here is that when Batman makes his presence known, while he's fighting all these different guys, he turns around and he sees Marcus. And that's what's happening here. Marcus is just kind of falling down this spiral of self-destruction. He's falling down this path of ending up with all the wrong people. But again, switching back over to Bruce Wayne, that following day, switching back over to Bruce Wayne, when he's spending time with Randall Winters, again, Randall is a guy that wants to build this great big huge condominium complex. And Bruce Wayne is yet again pondering what direction his life would have taken had he not experienced the death of his parents. And he looks at Randall and he sees the path that he could have been on. And that's something that's so ironic here. That's why this story works so well, is because Marcus and Randall are two distinctly different paths that Bruce Wayne's life could have taken. If his parents had lived, he could have gone on to be this really wealthy guy who cares nothing for the plight of the common man. At the same time, with his parents dying, he could have gone on to become Randall, totally self-destructive, leading himself down a path that could eventually result in his death if he stays there. But the more that Bruce Wayne looks at Randall Winters, the more he says, I don't like this man. I don't like this man, this disconnected from humanity. I don't like this man who would look at the poor and say, your poverty is your problem, sorry about your luck. I don't like this man who would look at individuals and say, this part of town may very well be your home, but you're in my way. You need to move. He's like, I do not like who this man is or what he stands for. Now, of course, Randall is just kind of injected into the story a little bit, and there'll be more or less a conclusion to his individual character. But at this point, we basically pick up with Bruce Wayne kind of looking at this stance of saying, if Randall Winters is so hell-bent on tearing down Bayside in order to basically go through and build his condominium complex, then the only option that I really have here is to stand in his way. And so he says, that's what I'm going to do. He's literally going to go through and he's going to clear out the crime, because that's really what happened here. In this section of Gotham City, that once the huge factory had been shut down, once it had gone out of business, the people who lived in this part of town moved. They ran off. It was like Detroit. The auto industry failed and everybody just bailed out in Detroit. They took off to the point that it basically turned into a war zone, into no man's land. No one with any measure of common sense would go live in Detroit if they had the choice. And so because of this, he says, and let's solve this problem. Let's clear all these criminals out. Let's clear out all this crime. Let's restore this to a neighborhood that people want to live in. And that's the essence of the story. Batman's war on crime. One of the other things that he discovers is that where a lot of the young kids in the neighborhood are basically getting involved in what seems to be this huge factory, the idea is that they're putting them to work. They're putting the kids to work for the purpose of gaining money, making money on their own. But in a sense, these kids are just being used for a purpose in the sense that this entire place is just making drugs. That's all it is. It's a drug running facility. And so as soon as Batman gets in there, he starts going through all these guys, taking them all out. But then he hears a gun cocked behind him. He turns around and Marcus is standing there. And this is the picture that I put out on Twitter. For those of you guys who follow me on Twitter, @ComicsExplain, this is the picture that I put out there when he's looking at Marcus. And again, he sees himself. I mean, Marcus is at a crossroads right now. If Marcus pulls the trigger, his life is over. Batman will survive. That's fine. Batman will probably live. He has the resources and the means to get around this. I mean, sure, the bullet will penetrate him, but Marcus doesn't have any measure of accuracy. He's a kid holding a gun whose recoil he couldn't even begin to be able to handle on his own. And so the bullet may fly off to the left or something like that, but I doubt it would kill Bruce Wayne. It might, but I doubt it would kill Batman. But regardless of what happens to Batman, Marcus's life is done. He's a murderer. Even if he's not caught by the cops, he's crossed this path that he can't come back from. He's crossed a line that he'll never be able to return from. And that's Batman's point. Batman says, look, we both lost our parents. We've both suffered tragedy of an unimaginable level. Few people in this world will be able to experience the tragedy that we've experienced. A lot of people have lost their parents, but not a lot of people have experienced the loss of their parents by virtue of being killed in an alley somewhere because they had something somebody else wanted. It was a senseless murder. And Bruce Wayne says, do not fall down that road. Do not let the death of your parents turn your life inside out. Do not let the destruction and the violence of other individuals determine your life. do not become what killed our families. And it is an incredibly touching moment because this is Bruce Wayne. This isn't Batman talking. This isn't Batman talking to Marcus. It's not, I'm the Dark Knight and don't let what, don't become what killed our families. This is Bruce Wayne. This is the man, Bruce Wayne. And that's why it works so well, because it's beautifully done. It's just this chance to save a life. And this is what he talks about. This is what Bruce Wayne says. While he's observing all these different things, while he begins to invest in this condominium complex, building this part of town back up, he basically says, look, my goal here, my belief was that if I saved Marcus, I could save myself. Now, of course, with regards to Randall Winters, all Bruce Wayne really does is just report the fact that, Randall Winters has been backing some criminal actions. He's more or less involved with crime. And the result is that, he's reported to Jim Gordon, the police investigate, and he's most likely going to be arrested. But looking at his overarching goal so far, looking at his overarching actions, Batman basically says, my goal was that was to help Marcus. I believed that if I could help Marcus, I believe that if I could, keep Marcus back, keep Marcus from falling down this path of self-destruction, then maybe I can leave my grief. Maybe I can walk away from my grief. Maybe I can get past my scars, get past my pain. He says, right now, I'm just kind of waiting for that time to come. And that's what's so sad about this, is there's no one there for Batman. Batman is the savior of Gotham City. Who's Batman's savior? Who's coming to rescue Batman? Who's coming to rescue him from the pain that he's experienced? Who's coming to rescue him from the trauma that he's endured over the course of his life? There's no one coming for that. He's waiting on his own Superman, his own superhero to come along and to say, everything is okay. Everything will be fine. I'm sorry this happened. But in the end, it's so beautifully done. It's so beautifully written. It's probably one of the greatest Batman stories there ever was. Like, it's incredible. But if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys want to see more videos like this, make sure you drop a like and leave a comment down below. Let me know how do you think this story compares to the other Batman stories that you've read before? I'm really, really curious to see where this stands. I imagine some of you guys might be like, nah, I like the fast-paced, crazy everything going on Batman stories, and some of you may be like, this is back to its roots Batman. This is the kind of story that I dig. So let me know what side of the fence you guys are on, and yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.